Hi students, it's Mrs. Gravenese. Before we begin Chapter 2, which is all about multiplication, I wanted to go over some of the skills that you might need for that chapter. First, let's start out taking a look at the difference between factors and multiples. So when we have a multiplication sentence, such as 2 times 3 equals 6, these numbers have names. The numbers that you're multiplying together, the 2 and the 3, are called factors. What you get when you multiply them together, the 6, is called a multiple or a product. So when we talk about a lot of the things in this chapter, you're going to need to be familiar with these terms. Again, the numbers that you multiply together are called factors. What you get is a multiple or product. When we think about factors and multiples, some other words that we might hear are things like prime numbers and composite numbers. So what does that mean? What's a prime number? What's a composite number? So let's first start off with prime numbers. A prime number is a number that has only 2 factors. And those 2 factors are the number 1 and the number that we were multiplying with, 1 in itself. So let's take a look at an example. A prime number is 5. Why is 5 prime? Because if you think about all of the whole numbers that you can multiply to make 5, what can multiply to make 5? Only 1 times 5 or 5 times 1. And they're the same numbers, right? So the only factors of 5 are 1 and 5. So 1 and 5 are the factors of 5. So if 1 and 5 are the only whole number factors that we can multiply to get 5, that means 5 is prime. Let's take a look at another example of a prime number. 13 is prime. If you can think of all the numbers that you can multiply that are whole to make 13, well, 2 times something doesn't give me 13. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Nope, nothing in the 3 times tables gives me 13. 4s, 5s, nothing that I can think of. And that's because the only factors of 13 are 1 and 13, which means 13 is prime. All right, pause the video. Can you think of another number that's prime? Okay, what did you come up with? I'm going to list some prime numbers. 2 is prime, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, and we could really keep going and going forever because numbers go on forever. But these are some of the first primes. Now, for 5th grade, you really don't have to know many more than that. And I always say, make sure you memorize the first 5 primes because you'll use those the most. Okay, so 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Those are the first 5 prime numbers. Now, if you noticed in this short list, there's only one even number in our list of primes. And that's because in every number in the entire universe, there's only one number that's even, that's prime. 2 is the only even prime number. And that's because all numbers that are even after 2 are not prime because they can be divided by 2. So they would have 2 as a factor. What about 1 and 0? A lot of students say, what about 1 and 0? Well, 1 does not fit the definition because the factors of 1, well, it's 1 times 1. So there's only one factor of 1, 1. And 0 is nothing. So we don't even consider 0. So these are your first 5 primes. That's important to know, and I would jot that down if you have paper. Okay, so let's switch over to composite. What are composite numbers? Well, to be honest, it's the opposite of a prime. If a number is not prime, it's composite. So composite numbers have more than 2 factors. Remember, prime had only 2 factors, 1 and itself. Composite numbers have more than 2 factors. So let's do an example of a composite number, and we'll start off small. 4. 4 is the smallest composite number. So what do I multiply to get 4? Well, I can multiply 1 and 4 to make 4, and I can multiply 2 times 2 to make 4. So what are all the factors of 4? 1, 2, and 4. 4 has 3 factors. Notice I wrote them in order from least to greatest. That's a good habit to get into. I didn't write the 2 twice because you don't need to. These are the factors of 4. All right, let's look at another composite number. Let's look at 10. What are all the factors of 10? Let's see, we can take 1 times 10. We can take 2 times 5. 10 is not divisible by 3 or 4 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. So this is it. What are the factors of 10? 1, 2, 5, and 10. That's why 10 is composite, because it has more than 2 factors. It has 4 of them. Let's do one more. This one is commonly thought of as being prime. Why is 9 not prime? Think about it. What did you come up with? Well, let's look at the factors of 9. 1 times 9 and 3 times 3. A lot of people confuse 9 as being prime because it's odd. Well, not every odd number is prime. There's a lot of odd numbers, in fact, that are composite. So the factors of 9 are 1, 3, and 9. There are more than 2 factors, so it's composite. Can you think of another odd number that's composite? What did you come up with? A common one is 25. 25 is odd because it ends at a 5. It's not divisible by 2. So what are the factors of 25? 1 times 25 and 5 times 5. So because there are more than 2 factors, we have 1, 5, and 25. We know that 25 is composite. When I was listing my factors of these numbers, notice that I always started with the same pattern. Every number is divisible by 1 in itself, and I always would start with 1 times that number. Don't forget 1 as one of your factors. All right, so let's review. Today we looked at the difference between factors and multiples and products prime numbers and composite numbers. Remember that in multiplication, if you have numbers that are being multiplied, we call them factors. What you get is the multiple, or otherwise known as the product. Numbers can be prime or composite. So prime numbers are numbers such as 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, etc. They only have two factors, 1 and that number. And then the opposite, composite numbers, are numbers such as 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 12, etc. Every even number except for 2 is composite. And yes, odd numbers can be composite. A little trick to remember the difference between prime and composite. Which of these words is longer? Which one has more letters, prime or composite? Yeah, composite has more letters. And you can use that to help you remember. Well, it has more letters because composite numbers have more factors than prime. So use that little hint to help you remember things. All right, I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.